When you were growing up, what did you imagine? What did you see yourself doing when you got older? And when you got older, did you keep what you had imagined real? Are you doing the things that you imagined you would be doing when you were a child? Pablo Picasso says, everything that you can imagine is real. Everything that you can imagine is real. So what does that mean to you? What is the first thing, or what are the first things that come to mind when you hear that quote? We'll come back to that later. When I was a child, I had two things that I really imagined myself doing. I was the only child up until the age of 12, so I had a rich imagination. I used to play with, toys and, stuffed animals, even basketball trophies, my uncle's basketball trophies. I would play with them, make up all kinds of dramatic stories. And then at some point, I don't know when, how, but I think it's because I had a lot of time. So I was watching a lot of TV when no one was around. I wanted to be a marine biologist because I just thought ocean life was so cool and dolphins were the best. And I still think that dolphins are super cool and awesome and wonderful. But then I got bored with it. I was like, nah, I don't want to do that anymore. So I took that away from my imagination. And then I decided that I wanted to be a forensic pathologist. So I went from something that was light, right? More on the positive, childlike side, to something that was a little bit more darker. And again, I had a lot of time. So I was watching these crime stories. And I just thought it was fascinating to imagine what it would be like to determine what happened to a person based upon examining their body. What happened to them, when it happened to them, how it happened to them. So I wanted to be a marine biologist, and then I wanted to be a forensic pathologist. And then when I got older, I was like, okay, that's a little bit too dark, and I don't want to do that anymore. And so I went to an alternative high school. Basically, that was very few textbooks. It was like a power to the people type of high school. And I loved it. I'm so grateful for that experience. And there was a very interesting, you know how you have that one teacher who's a little out there, right? At the time, you think they're just weird. They're just, what's wrong with that teacher? That teacher's a little strange. But then when you look back on it, you're like, that was an amazing teacher. So I had a teacher like that. And she taught two classes. One was on UFOs. Again, I told you my high school alternative, right? So it's the alternative perspective of the world. That's what my high school was about. So I was like, I don't want to take that. It's interesting, but what am I going to do with that? And then her other class was on poetry. I was like, okay, that seems interesting. What's that about? I like words. I didn't love words like that, but I liked them. And so I took that class, and it changed my life because she brought poetry to life. She used, a lot of gestures and body language, and even the way she spoke about it. It really touched me, and from that point on, I said, I want to be a poet. I want to write poetry. That childlike feeling came back to me. And so that became the thing that I imagined myself doing. That and traveling the world. So traveling the world, going to bookstores and having these book signings and being all famous. I mean, here I am, I'm not famous. So that part of my imagination did not work out. But when I got to college, I had a little brief conversation with one of my classmates, and I was telling her that one of my dreams was to just travel a lot. And I said something like, yeah, if I travel, I want, and she cut me off when I said if. She's like, no. Don't say if you will travel. Say when you will travel. And that changed my life because I didn't fully believe that I could travel the world. It was just something that was in my imagination, but I couldn't really see it as my reality. But once she said that, I decided that I was going to make that my reality. Now, the poetry I gave up on because I couldn't make a living off of that. And as I shared in my last video, I decided to become an ESL teacher in South Korea. But that also turned out to be one of the best decisions that I've ever made because it revived that childlike innocence in me. Why? Because I was working with children who have such a rich imagination. So they indirectly, unknowingly, revived that imagination that I had for being a poet and traveling. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to write that book. I'm going to write a book of poetry. And I did. I had to take some time off from teaching because doing both was just extremely difficult. So I took a little bit of time off. I finished it and self-published it. And I was just like, wow, I did this. I have been imagining this since high school. I'd given up on it, came back to it, and now it's my reality. I can say I'm a poet. And the traveling part, that came as a result of me being an ESL teacher in South Korea. So I've traveled to a number of countries as a result of being an ESL teacher. So what I had imagined didn't happen exactly how I imagined it, but it did eventually come together. And I can say that while there are still a lot of difficulties with living in another country, I'm very thankful and satisfied with the life that I have. Because like I said in the last video, I did it and I chose it on my own terms. So I'll ask you again, what is it that you imagined that your future would be like when you were a child? And is that the life that you're living now? And if it's not, it's fine because things happen, circumstances change. And also what we want for ourselves changes and shift as a result of those circumstances changing. But is there something that you still hold on to? Is there something that you just can't let go of because you still want it so badly? You still imagine it to be your reality. What is that thing? That can be your reality, as Pablo Picasso said. But two things need to happen. First, hold that vision. So whatever it is that you imagine for your future, don't let that go. And number two, do something about it. Oh, I'm too old, or that ship has sailed. No, it hasn't. It's only sailed if you decide that it's sailed. It's never too late. And you can just take small steps, and it may take time, but if it's worth it, and if it still means something to you, don't let it go. It can be your reality. Don't let it go. So I hope that helps. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.